You know, sometimes the most powerful detective isn't a person at all, it's science. When a horrific crime leaves investigators with conflicting stories and way too many suspects, they have to turn to the one witness that absolutely cannot lie, the victim's own body. And in the case of Solange Haikkala, her body had quite a story to tell.
And this quote, it really gets to the heart of the case we're going to break down today. In a world full of human error, of stories that change, the physical evidence left behind becomes the only real truth. It's like a giant puzzle, and for investigators, every bruise, every single fiber is a piece they have to fit into place.
All right, so let's set the scene. Our story starts in Jamestown, Colorado. It's a small, kind of eclectic mountain community where, honestly, serious crime is just not a thing. It's the kind of quiet place where everybody knows everybody, which makes the events of one particular Saturday morning all the more shocking.
That peace is just shattered by a frantic 911 call. A neighbor, Richard Estron, had gone to check on 30-year-old Solange Haikkala, and he brought her 12-year-old daughter, Alara, with him. And together, they find Solange. Estron's words to the dispatcher are just haunting. She's got blood all over her face, and she's cold, real cold. And when the dispatcher asks him to try CPR, his response is final. No, she's dead.
When detectives get there, the scene confirms their absolute worst fears. The small studio is a total wreck, completely ransacked. There are beer bottles scattered everywhere. It just screams violent struggle. Solange is on the floor, partly covered by a blanket, naked from the waist down, and her body is covered in bruises.
But here's the thing. Despite all the bruises and the chaos, there's no obvious fatal wound. There's no gunshot, no stab wound. So investigators are basically starting from square one. They know it's a homicide, but they've got no weapon, no clear motive, and no obvious suspect. The hunt for answers was on.
In any investigation like this, you start with the people closest to the victim. So police started digging into Solange's life, her relationships, and her final hours. And very quickly, two very different but equally compelling suspects popped up on their radar.
So the first person investigators absolutely have to talk to is Solange's long-term boyfriend, a guy named Sheldon Jones. And as they start asking questions, this really disturbing pattern of domestic abuse starts to come out, making him an immediate person of interest. Now, the case for Sheldon is a real head-scratcher for investigators. On one hand, the evidence against him seems pretty strong. Neighbors heard constant fighting. Her own daughter didn't feel safe around him. And, get this, Sheldon himself admits to assaulting Solange just days before she was murdered, describing how he twisted her breasts and choked her. But here's the kicker. He has a rock-solid alibi. He was staying at a coworker's house, and multiple people swear he never left that entire night.
Okay, so with Sheldon's alibi holding up, detectives have to look elsewhere. Their attention shifts to the last person known to have seen Solange alive, Robbie Kohler, who happens to be the local fire chief. He gave her a ride home from a party that night.
Kohler's story is a massive red flag for investigators, mostly because it keeps changing. At first, he's like, nope, I just dropped her off. But as detectives push him, he admits, okay, we were making out. Then the story changes again. He confesses to fondling and licking her breasts for hours. I mean, this constant shifting makes him look incredibly guilty, but he's adamant on 2 points. He never had sex with her, and he did not kill her. And then right in the middle of this interrogation, Kohler drops a new name. He says that while he and Solange were parked, this other guy, Thomas Altimus, kept driving past just watching them. At the time, it seemed like a minor detail, maybe just an attempt to throw them off his trail. But that name was about to become the most important one in the entire case.
So let's recap. Police have two strong but totally contradictory suspects. You've got the abusive boyfriend with an unbreakable alibi, and you've got the last guy to see her alive whose story is all over the place. With no clear path forward, the whole investigation pivots to the only source of truth they have left, Solange's body.
Now, before we dive into the autopsy, it's really important to understand this concept called transient evidence. Basically, it's evidence like DNA from saliva or semen that can be super easily lost, destroyed, or contaminated. Recognizing this, the very first thing the coroner did at the scene was take extensive swabs from all over Solange's body, and that quick action would turn out to be the single most important move in the entire investigation. The autopsy finally provided some hard facts. First, the cause of death was manual strangulation. Second, there were clear signs of a violent sexual assault. And third, toxicology showed her blood alcohol level was likely over 0.30. To put that in perspective, that's profoundly intoxicated. She was basically incapacitated. And then, they found it, the crucial evidence, semen on her tank top, a direct DNA link to her killer.
So what about that third name, Thomas Altimus, the guy Collar mentioned? Well, detectives run a background check, and what they find is absolutely horrifying. He's a registered sex offender, and he has a prior conviction for violently assaulting an intoxicated woman. His MO, his method of operation, it was a perfect match for this crime. And suddenly, all these little pieces start snapping into a terrifying timeline. Around 12:30 a.m., Solange and Kohler leave a party. A little bit later, Thomas Altimus is seen driving past their truck, watching. By 3 a.m., Solange makes it home. But then, sometime between 4 and 5 a.m., her daughter notices the studio light goes out, which she said never happened. And the timeline ends the very next day when police find Thomas Altimus dead on a hillside from a self-inflicted shotgun wound.
So here we are. We've got the boyfriend, we've got the fire chief, and we've got a dead sex offender. It's a complicated mess of interactions, but now all eyes are on the lab results from those swabs. The science is about to tell the final, undeniable story.
This is the moment of truth. Investigators have theories, they have timelines, they have plenty of motive, but what they need is definitive proof. The DNA is the only thing that can point, without a shadow of a doubt, to the person responsible for Solange Haikkala's death.
And the results really show you the power of forensic science. Sheldon Jones's DNA, it was found on her face and breasts, which was consistent with them being in a relationship. He was exonerated. Robbie Kohler's DNA, found on her breasts exactly where he admitted it would be. He was also exonerated. But Thomas Altimus's DNA, his was found on her neck, on her wrists, and inside her vagina. It was irrefutable. Thomas Altimus was the killer.
With that DNA match, the case was officially closed. The legal term for it is cleared with death of an offender. The theory is that Altimus, knowing he'd be caught and was facing a lifetime back in prison, took his own life.
But the story doesn't quite end there. See, while Sheldon Jones didn't murder Solange, he wasn't completely off the hook for his abuse. Prosecutors actually went after him on assault charges, based on his own confession, and he pleaded guilty. It was a way for the justice system to make a statement that all violence against Solange mattered.
An investigator on the case really summed it up perfectly. He said, "In this case, no science, no case." And he was right. Without the DNA, this would have almost certainly become a cold case. They had suspicions, sure, but the science provided the proof. It just cut right through all the lies and confusion and gave them a clear, undeniable answer.
So the killer was identified and the case was closed. But because he never stood in a courtroom, never had to answer for his crime, we're left with his final, really complex question. Is that resolution a form of justice, or is it just an end to a tragic story?